Hey everyone, so we're back with another episode of the Sistah Girls podcast, and I'm Cherie. And today we are celebrating Black Indie Authors Day, and also our Behind the Pen 2021 is virtual because of the Patricia. We have Nako and we have Nia Forrester. Welcome, ladies.
Hey,
Thank you.
How you guys doing today?
Well, you know how I'm doing.
Well,
but other than that, I'm pretty good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see Nako. I know she's like not on the East Coast anymore, so
yes,
that you are thriving in
blowing
in LA, right?
Thank you. Yes, I'm loving it here, minus the gas and rent and bills and stuff. Everything else.
Oh God, I bet that's a big change. And also, I follow you on Twitter, so I saw you almost like choked yourself to death the other day.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Yes, I'm still literally.
So the reason why I wanted to invite both of you on here is because, one, I know that Nako is a big fan and admirer of Nia Forrester, and I know that you both have a great...
As am I of her.
Yeah, but it's always great because you are able to, we're able to put these people together in the same room. But because we're virtual, we're putting you guys together in the same virtual space, and I think it'll be a great conversation to hear how you both, you like each other's work, and you're like, it's a little bit of an age difference, but at the same time you take up the same space, and you share readers. So just to jump right into it, how are you doing since the Patricia, also known as the pandemic, and how has it been developing new characters while being in the middle of this pandemic? And then you have the Black Lives Movement, and then you have when Trump was being Trump and he had power and we were all like holding our breath. And now we have horrible news about Haiti and Afghanistan. How do you guys stay motivated and stay in that space to create like your art during these times?
You want to go first?
Go on and take it.
I don't know. That's a lot. I mean, I thought the pandemic would sort of, in a weird way, give me the opportunity to write more. But so much was happening at the same time, like the political stuff and then the civil unrest. And to be honest with you, I had like a creative crisis. Like I could not write almost at all. And I could not write the things that I used to write. And I'm still, struggling to come out of that a little bit. And, but it's been tough. I mean, I think for me, most of all, it was like, finding out on a whole lot of fronts that the world that you believed existed did not exist in quite the way you thought it did, right? Like, there's, racism and injustice, and that there are entitled people of a certain class and creed that have things they don't deserve, that, ugly things are happening in the world. But I think it was like a perfect storm in 2020. I mean, like all of those things coming together at once. And I don't know if you follow me on Facebook, I'm a little bit too immersed in what's happening in this world sometimes. So it made it really, really hard for me to write. But, good news is I'm starting to read again. I'm starting to write again. And, I'm excited to see what comes in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Miss Thing was like moving across the country. Well, I mean, before she answers for herself, I got to say, I have a lot of admiration for her because what I've seen is an author who is in a constant state of reinvention and writing different stuff and trying different stuff and just a true creative in all senses of the word. So, before she answers for herself, I just have to put it on record that I have a lot of admiration for what you're doing and even just sort of moving and trying something new. So, kudos for that. And, know that you're an inspiration for even us old heads out here.
First of all, that was so nice. Before Nako, I'm smiling for you. I'm smiling for you, Nako.
Can I get that clip so when I'm like, forget this writing thing, I can remember in the words of Nia Forrester, I am great. So thank you. Y'all know Nia is my favorite author. I tell anybody. It doesn't even get to roll off their tongue good because I'm like, oh, it's Nia Forrester. And I honestly get mad when readers tell me they like, who is that? I'm like, what have you been reading your whole life? Like, have you not read Nia Forrester's catalog? So it's an honor to be here tonight. Thanks, Cherie, for inviting me. I'm so grateful. The pandemic was cool. I can kind of connect to what Nia was saying. I just started back reading. Me and Cherie was talking about that before the call, I literally just started back reading, but I haven't been able to get cozy with anything, maybe because Nia hasn't dropped in a long time, but we're patiently waiting on another book. But just getting back to reading nonfiction, cozying up on the couch with a book. I just was in a rut for a really long time. Not to say that it wasn't good books out. I couldn't catch a groove. I think I was honestly burnt out. I've been reading and writing since forever. And I feel like once it becomes like a job or like a paycheck, it's just so hard to still do it just for fun. I think I was overthinking it. And so once I was able to like step back and say, okay, you know what, I can enjoy this without trying to think of an outline every time I open another novel. So that's where I'm at right now. The pandemic was cool. I think we all needed the breather. I think everybody needed to take a pause.
So you literally, as soon as you said that, you put me onto one of my next questions. Is like, how do you make sure that you guys are both up with the times? Because, we went from everybody wanting these long series, so then it became, I just want to read a standalone. Then it went to, I don't even want to read a standalone in the series. I want a novel. No, not a novel. I want a novelette. And it's like, you can see the authors and they're trying to keep up with the times, but also how do you go say 1 minute and say my writing style doesn't even fit with what the times is while still being part of what's current and making sure that you can keep up and not get sort of left behind. I could start with Nia.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the kiss of death if you're a writer, right? To try to like keep up with whatever the trend is. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's like hard not to do that. But if that's not what you're feeling, believe me, the readers will know in the product, right? You could try to like fool them all you want. And I've had a couple of books like that where, when I saw the reviews and I saw the feedback, I was like, oh, damn, they can tell. Like they know that my heart was not in that project, no matter how I thought I might have like camouflaged it. I think it just doesn't work. So for me, and I think especially because of the last couple of years, the last 18 months, I think it has absolutely hit home for me that I cannot write what I don't feel. I had a couple of projects on hold because I was waiting to get that romance feeling again so I could write romance. That just wasn't where my head was at. My voice changed a lot because I felt like I had different things to say. And so incomplete projects that I tried to complete in that period sound disjointed to me. I literally have, I think, maybe 3.5 complete books that I don't know if they're worth a damn. And I need to like sit with them for a minute and work with them and then maybe release. But in terms of trends, there's no way to fool the readers. There really isn't. I mean, you can try, but I've never pulled it off. So I don't know if Nako feels differently, but that's something that I just have not been able to do.
No, I can't do it. I'm such an emotional writer. If a guy pisses me off, the guy dies in the book. I can't write from any other place other than emotion. So it's hard for me to follow the trends. Right now, I feel like urban is a great place if there are authors that can drop urban. I can't write an urban book to save my life these days. Like it's just not where I am. And then, I'm kind of like, dang, I know if I do it, I know I'll get all these reviews. I know I'll make all this boohoo money, but one, reviews don't matter to me as much as they used to. They don't have the power to destroy my day as they once did. And two, I don't write for the money anymore. So it's kind of like I have to just write what my spirit tells me to. So I ain't keeping up with no trends. If I want to write a long book, I'll write a long book. If I have a short, I have a short. If I'm going to write about a pastor that marries a porn star, then that's what it is. Like I can't and I won't succumb to what the charts say. I can't do it.
So how did you get to that place? I think both of you guys I can speak to both of you ladies about that, of getting to that place where it's just like, I know there are readers out there who are going to want certain characters, certain spinoff books, certain series. It don't even have to be like a genre. They'll be like, well, can you make The Best Friend a book? Because I want that. Well, can you make sure that this comes out in a certain timely fashion? How do you stay focused while writing and make sure that you tune that out to write what's authentic to yourself and know what voice is the real one, what voice is not? Because sometimes ego and, wanting to just be in that moment, it's hard to go from being loved by everyone to being like, girl, that was a flop. in the reviews or whatever else? Or so how do you make sure that you're saying like this is my voice and not everybody else when you're writing?
I feel like your readers can inspire you though, right? So I have at least 2, maybe even 3 books where I would not have written them had a reader not said, well, what about this person? Like, so if you all read the Commitment series, like the whole series of books about Keisha, I was not going to write that book. I was not going to write about Keisha. I didn't give her a second thought after that book was done. And someone mentioned her, I forget who, in one of the groups. And I thought, you know what? That's kind of interesting because women like Keisha can become caricatures. They can become demonized. We can use them as like plot devices to sort of introduce conflict without like giving them the benefit of their full humanity. Mm-hmm. Right. So how does a Keisha become a Keisha? Now that's a whole book. That's a series of books. Right. So, and I wouldn't have come up with that on my own. So I don't want to give the impression I tune it out 100%, but I filter it, right? So some ideas are just stupid ideas. And I'm like, you want to read that book? Maybe you need to write that book because I'm not going to write it. But there are some times that, readers come up with things where you're like, that's actually pretty genius. And they've sort of immersed themselves into the world that you've created and shown you dimensions to it that you might not have thought of. So, I give readers credit for that's why sometimes I post excerpts when I'm not done yet, or, because sometimes they like sort of seed a thought because I don't outline at all. So I don't know where I'm going when I start. Mm-hmm. So I get some ideas from that. So it's not that I think the readers are irrelevant or what they have to say is irrelevant. Mm-hmm. It's that I've got to be sure that I know what I want to say, and so that I have a basis from which to filter what they want to hear. But it depends.
Got it. I never thought about it like that, especially like them giving you like more inspiration, because we need a Keisha. I'm just saying. Nako.
I remember the question, but you can give it to me.
I was just about to ask you, do you want me to repeat the question? I was basically saying that how do you make sure that when you're writing it's from an authentic space, especially when you have certain characters or certain books that are doing really well and readers might want you to, go forward with a project. You're like, I don't know about that. That's not where I'm at. Kind of like what you said about writing urban. Mm-hmm. So how do you make sure when you're in that writing space that you're writing for your authentic self and not listening to the outside world when it comes to just you and your writing?
Okay, copy. So I have been off Instagram for 4 months. I got back on yesterday because I got tired of my mom calling me saying like that people were calling like, oh, is Nicoria out there okay? We haven't seen her post anything on Instagram. And I said, well, 1, I'm writing a book that needed my full attention. And 2, I can't, when I'm writing, and I know a lot of my readers know, I'll deactivate from all social media. You just won't be able to find me. And that works best for me when I'm writing. And then it's for me, I feel like my work can be pure. Like I can't, if somebody was to post a book with the same title, I genuinely didn't know because I was not on there, like people get real sensitive about their character names. So while I'm like super immersed in a project, I don't want to even know about what any other author is doing. I just want to focus on me and my baby. And then when I birth this baby, I'll come back to social media, prepared to give my full self. And then as far as what the readers want and stuff, me and Chelsea Maria just had this conversation about a month or 2 ago because my readers were pushing for a book that I could deliver, but I was not in a place at the time. Like my grandmother was sick and that book would have just required so much attention that I didn't have at the time or energy. And so I said, I'm just going to write 2 shorts. I said, but I know they're waiting on this book. I know they want this book from me. And Chelsea was like, write it the way you want to write it. So I started that book last week and it's going really good. I'm on chapter 9, so I'm really happy. But yeah, I agree with Nia. I like when the readers have something to say because half of the time I don't forget what I wrote in the last book anyway. So most readers, for me, I don't outline my books either. Them readers, the ideas they have, I'm just writing them down like, oh, they was pregnant in the last book. Thanks for reminding me. So thank God for the readers.
Well, that's good because I'm happy that, they're able to, I mean, readers, you read your work and you always have like your own idea or your own imagination to whatever you guys are already writing. It's like it takes our imagination to take us on our own journeys, right? After you finish writing it. But one thing I know that both of you ladies do in your work is that you take on really like deep topics like depression, people killing people, it's just like, and you tackle topics with sexuality and femininity, all of those things, even like Black Lives Matter and race. And how do you know, or when it comes to a character, any character that you're writing, to take them this far so that the trauma doesn't overshadow the storyline? Because sometimes you read a story and you're just like, well, dang, this character just can't get right, and it overshadows the whole moral of the story. And then by the end of the book, you're like, oh, so I guess that was the moral of the story, but we spent like 25 chapters talking about the suicide and the rape and this. So how do you guys both make sure that you balance adding in those traumas, or adding in those real life situations, while also making sure that you don't lose sight of the overall plot or the story? Nia?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's actually the opposite. I don't worry about having the serious issue overshadow the story. I worry about trivializing serious issues, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't ever want to use something like suicide, homicide, Black Lives Matter, like disordered sexuality or sexual behavior as like a plot device that doesn't sort of do justice to just how important those issues are and how serious those issues are. So, I actually don't worry about plot almost at all, to be honest, like where the story starts and where it ends in terms of occurrences and plot, I don't really care about, but I do care about what you mentioned, which is where the characters started and where they end. Right. So the goal for me is to like show the evolution of a person. And usually people evolve through things that happen to them, things that people say to them, situations that they're in. So that's how I build my plot. I know to some degree, like to use Keisha again as an example, I want her to reach a place of self-realization. So I have things happen that will stoke that development in the character, but I don't really care that much what those things are. I don't care if it's like super exciting or action-packed. It just has to impact the character so that she changes by the end, or he changes by the end. So yeah, I don't worry about the story being overshadowed by serious issues. I worry about serious issues being trivialized because I'm writing them in the context most of the time of a romance, right? So it's like, I don't want her to fall in love with him, so suddenly she's no longer a cutter or suicidal. Mm-hmm. Like, love ain't gonna do that for you. So, so I need to like really write the deep work into that. And so that's where I would focus.
Nako?
I ain't got nothing to say. Nia said it all. I agree. The book is the book. And if it's deep, it's deep. If it's funny, it's funny. Next question.
Got you. So Nia, you basically said you don't want to trivialize real issues. And one thing you've always said, and you stood kind of steadfast with, that you don't really write bubbly romance. You even one time, I think, I don't want to misquote you, but you said you're not really like a romance author. You write more of like a realistic type story. But at the same time, how did you gain that writing style? Like, how did you gain the confidence to say, well, this is not how all the other romances are typically done? And how did you find your own voice in your writing style, especially in the early days because when you're a new writer, you just want to like fit in and do well and not make too much noise, right? Too much bad noise. So how did you find your lane with that?
Well, first I should say that whenever I say I'm not a romance author, it can be interpreted as me sort of denigrating romance as a genre or romance author. So, I just want to say I have nothing but respect for the genre and the people who work in it. But here's what first of all, I don't really read a lot of romance, I'll be honest. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I don't read a lot, I think probably means that my influences are things that are not romance, right? So I don't know, or I didn't know in the very beginning, like when I wrote Commitment, which is like a 500 something page tome that romances ain't supposed to be that long. Probably nobody's supposed to cheat on anybody, right? So that the reader can stay kind of in love with the book boyfriend. You can't have him go out and like screw a video hoe. Like that ain't gonna fly in romance, generally speaking. So I didn't know the rules. That was part of it because I just hadn't been reading the genre. And then, you know, the other piece is I don't think of my stories as like a beginning, middle, and end. I think of the whole thing as a middle. So it's like you're dropping into someone's life and you're getting a snapshot of this moment in time. They existed before I started writing about them. They're going to exist after. That's the impression that I'm trying to create. So I don't know. So I didn't really worry about what was happening. And I kid you not, it was like a revelation to me to know that there was that much Black romance out there. Once I released, you know, my stuff, I was like, who's this? Who's Delaney Diamond? Who's this person? I was really excited. I never knew that there was this whole other vibrant world, but you know, it's America. So that kind of stuff tends to get subsumed. They act like we don't exist until we start to make them a lot of money. But, you know, I didn't know. So it was pure ignorance. It was not genius. It was just, I had no idea what the genre did and was about. And so I did my own thing.
Gotcha. Well, doing your own thing, you created a dope lane. And I think a lot of other writers have been inspired by your work into like knowing that there is a blueprint, but then also knowing that because I'm an indie author that I can kind of create my own lane and that can be okay too, right? So both of you, when thinking about your careers from the early days of your writing until now, how do you think you've grown as an author? Nako?
I definitely will say I was just so open when I first started. I don't think it's a regret. I feel like that was the foundation that was needed to establish myself with my readers. Had I known what I know now, I would have done things totally different. Just that part more than anything. And editors, I didn't take the importance of an editor series. Now I have like 4, and I wish I really would like another one, to be honest. Research, just taking your time, and if you're going to write about a subject, make sure that you're an expert at it, or at least just take the extra week or so to pause and do the research for the book that you're trying to write. I just think that's what's most important right now.
And can I just say that, like, how she answered that question is like a part of why I admire her craft, because first of all, she reached out to me once when she read one of my books, and I was like, oh, that's so sweet. It was with such humility, right? And then I was like, let me go check out her work. She's like, oh, I'm a writer too. Like she's writing a little, I don't know, 100-page chapbook that nobody's ever read. So she's like, oh, I really like your work. So I went on Amazon and I'm like, I'm going to read this sister's work. Cause I was like, she got like 900 reviews, 50 odd. But I was like, whatever, child. I mean, like, what are you kidding me? I mean, but I admire that about her, because I think what you hear in her answer and what I've seen is like sort of like watching her develop her career is someone who's constantly like taking in new information and learning about her craft with humility and you know, I mean, there are a lot of writers out there who will tell you 10 times that they are the best in the game. And I'm like, I mean, you ain't trying to learn nothing because you're the best in the game. So, but a different posture that I see definitely from Nako and from some other authors is that, you know, they're constantly absorbing. And, you know, I try to remind myself to do the same, but, you know, I get her newsletter. I follow her on Twitter. I follow her on Facebook, and I see somebody who's sort of like, you know, a sponge and absorbing information from different places. And, yeah, and I definitely admire that. I think we should all do that as writers. Like in terms of how I think I'm doing as an author, I think I'm evolving. No, I don't know where I'm going to go right now. I'm definitely at a fork in the road where I'm trying to figure out what I want to say and who I want to be in the writing space. But you know, it's good that, you know, folks like Nako are out there, and I'm like, oh man, she out there like doing television now, like, or, you know, so I'm like, but I think of those as all sort of things that will probably feed into the work that she creates. So, you know, it's all for the greater good, and you know, reminds me to use my own experiences in the same way.
Yeah.
Let me just say that Nia used to, not say she used to, but back in the day, it was like we used to get them all the time, these notes by Nia's emails.
Yeah.
So that was what inspired me to start my newsletter. And me and my mother was trying to come up with like a cute name. And she was like, well, what do you want to call it? And I was like, well, I just want to share what I'm doing through the week. And my mom was like, well, let's just call it the Endless. And I was like, okay. So
but you have discipline with your thing. Like I make all these big promises. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it every month. And I'm like, homegirl out here, like sending emails weekly or something. That's like the discipline piece of the writing. Like I'm more like a woo woo kind of writer. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, you know what? The spirit has to visit me and all of this stuff. But, you know, and that may be the same for you, but I definitely see a level of discipline that, you know, is worth, replicating.
Thank you. Yeah, no, my dad, I grew up by two entrepreneurs. So all I've ever seen is get up and work and hustle and go to sleep till it's done. And I think that militant, not okay style has lingered on to me. Even when I'm tired, I write. It's like I have to. So it's been working.
So you both have like a great, like, I want to say like friendship, sisterhood type vibe. And I think that a lot of writers coming into this, and even writers who are in right now, they're trying to find that, or they're trying to find that writer who they can click with, or they're trying to find, like, even if you guys don't sit on the phone all day and talk about your hair, you still have this camaraderie where you're like, well, if I have a question, or, you know, like if I see something that inspires me, like you just said, you willingly out there said, Nako, that, you know, Nia wrote her emails, and that kind of inspired you to do the same thing. And you didn't feel like, oh, well, I can't do this because I don't want to be a copycat, or I don't want to do that. So how did you guys both ensure that you found a village or a tribe of other writers and other authors who are going to hold you down, and also like trust that, right? Because you guys don't live in the same state or the same, and you guys are not like, yeah, I know I can meet up the block. It takes more of an effort to be like cool with somebody via emails, texts, and voice notes, and, you know, maybe sometime hitting them up once a month. So how have you guys created that community, and what do you think other authors and aspiring people getting into this, how can they set that up themselves? Nia?
Yeah, I mean, like we're not in touch an awful lot, but I think we have like at least I'll speak for myself. Like my feeling about Nako's work is that she's one of the writers I watch, and I'm watching her trajectory, and I'm, you know, wishing her nothing but good things, and not even just wishing, but I see them being actualized both in her work and her life. And that, you know, and that brings me a lot of joy. I don't feel competitive toward other writers at all. I feel zero competitiveness because, you know, I deeply and truly believe that if we gave two writers exactly the same plot and an outline of a book and said, this is exactly what has to happen, we're going to write it differently. And it's going to resonate with people differently, depending on your own voice. So, I don't, you know, and if she says, well, I started a newsletter because you had a newsletter, well, cool. But you know what? She improved on whatever the heck it was I was doing. Yeah. So, you know, I feel no competitiveness, and I don't know. And I don't seek out a writing community or like a clique or anything like that. Really, I think I just sort of organically vibe with some people and others not. And, you know, largely, I think it's what I said before. I mean, the writers who are sort of boastful, who try to drag people who don't like their book, who try to show up people who say, you know, who say even the slightest negative thing about their work, who complain when you ask them for another book. I mean, come on now. I'm writing a book and somebody says to me, I want you to write more. I'm going to like cuss them out. Like, what is that? So I don't, so the writers and the community that I've built have been sort of organically around the principle that, you know, it is by grace that these people care about anything that you have to say. Mm-hmm. So honor that, right? So that's what I try to do. And I think, you know, just seeing the same spirit of humility among certain writers that I admire, those are the people that I gravitate towards, and, you know, who I tend to watch like I do Nako.
I thought it was great, Nia.
Yeah, so I always tell like new authors when they inbox me and say they feel alone in this industry. The first thing I tell them is you need to have a life outside of these books. Mm-hmm. I don't live my life on Facebook, and in all actuality, family ain't on Facebook. My mother is not under my status, you know. So I think that the thing that with me has always been, I don't care if these authors don't share my links. Thank you for the support. However, I'm not looking, my expectations are so low when it comes to what a pen sister can do or will do or won't do. I don't care, because I have a sister in real life and a family that supports me. So if you're getting into this for a pen pal or somebody to keep you up at night or, you know, cheer you on to the finish line, I think this is the wrong industry. People will turn on you. You know, people are going to hang with who's dropping. Keep your head down, write your books. It's not about any of that. I'm such a business person that as much as we all love writing, this is how a lot of us are eating. So I feel like it's important to remember that this is a business. We're not in here. This isn't Girl Scouts. Okay. It's just not. And luckily I've been blessed with real pen sisters, and I can say that and mean it. Chelsea, Maria, Dominique, Tom. I'm like, I have a solid group of friends that I know I can call if whatever. But again, without that, I still like, people be forgetting that this is a business. So I feel like a lot of people have turned this into a hobby, and it still has to be a level of respect when it comes to publishing books.
Yeah, so that actually leads me to another question. How do you guys maintain your professionalism in a space where you can see people or writers, or it goes in and out, right? So 1 minute we can say, you know, we want to be very professional, right? This, and then you like, well, I just saw this person do this on social. Like, how does that reflect? You know, they always say the bad apples don't reflect everybody, but at the same time, it does, because that is what gets amplified. So how do you make sure that you're staying in alignment with what you're here to do the work, while also knowing for sure that there's so much other foolery going around at the same time, and all you want to do is write? You don't want to jump on social media and go live and talk about this. You might not want to do the whole TikTok thing. You might not want to like have like an hour on Twitter talking about something that happened in like the latest gossip in the writing world. So how do you make sure you stay out of that? Because it's easy to get sucked in, especially when you are new and trying to find your tribe. Because y'all have been able to do it like fairly well, I must say so myself.
Oh, I've been unprofessional plenty, but usually not around usually not around writing stuff. Like I don't get into the like I usually don't know who's beefing with who and why and what fan got kicked out of what fan group because they didn't say the right thing. I don't know anything about that stuff. But when it happens, I can't lie. I'm like, you know, I'm like a little sponge for gossip. Like I will consume gossip like nobody's business. But I don't like to get into that kind of fray about writing, because I think it's sort of like a false competition. Like you cannot compete with another. I mean, if it's just about the money, sure. Somebody sells more than you, then I guess they're winning. But I'm not in it for that. So I don't really care so much, right? I'll help people sell books. I mean, what you can do though is compete with yourself, right? You have like an inner voice that tells you you love the work you produced or you don't. And I'm trying to get to a place where I love the work. I'm not there yet. I kind of like some of my books. I don't love almost none of them. So that's where I spend my time. The unprofessionalism for me comes in like, you know, fighting people around progressive politics and like popular culture, and you and me got into a three over like the entanglement thing. Remember the entanglement?
I think I'm the same. I feel like I'm always arguing about some black issues, some political stuff.
Right. But that's a different thing, right? Like that's like real life stuff that you need to be like emotionally invested in because it's about or people or whatever. But about a book, nah, I'm not going to do that. That's just stupid. But like I said, I'll like listen. And I'll say, what? Who's not talking to who now? What? But, you know, I have no interest in getting into that. And I think, you know, for your reference to young writers, my advice would be to steer clear of that. Because some writers, their reputation precedes them and not always in a good way, right? Like I know what they're up to, but I don't know what their book is doing.
Yeah.
That's not really where you want to be, I think, if you want to stick around for the, you know, long haul in this game.
I definitely agree. I don't like the drama. I don't like conflict. again, raised in a very peaceful yoga-y house. Parents didn't really do any yelling, so didn't really do drama. Really sheltered, very smothered child. So drama's like still scary to me. I just kind of ride over the wave. Like if an author tell me some tea, I'm like, girl, that happened. Where is that? Because I don't ever see anything. I'm normally deactivated half the year because I'm writing, so I really don't be knowing nothing. But we're grown. No, I don't. I be wanting to know the tea though. Somebody tell me, I'll listen.
Same. But move back into the writing. How do you guys know what characters to move forward with, especially after writing so many books? Y'all are not like on the fifth or sixth. Y'all are like out there and doing double digits. How do you know what characters to move forward with in the story? Even side characters. How do you flesh out who are the main characters, who are the best friends, and positioning those key characters to make sure that they don't overshadow the main characters, but complement them to move the story along?
I know it sounds weird, but they tell you, right? They tell you who they are, and they tell you when their story's unfinished. And you, so I don't know if it's like this for Nako, but sometimes a story doesn't come to me, like a person will come to me, or a snippet of dialogue will come to me, and you literally have to quiet it to finish what is at hand. So like a side character might, you might hear them saying something in your head and you're like, oh, that's a whole story. And you've got to like intentionally set it aside. I don't know. I don't worry about them overshadowing the main character. I don't know if I've ever had that happen. And if it were to happen, I think I would intentionally mute their influence on the story and stick a pin in it and say that this is a person who needs their own story. I think that's probably what I would do, but I haven't had that happen a whole lot.
Okay. Nako?
I think the same for me. My readers got to kind of say, oh my God, we wish you would have brought up that other dude that I don't name, who I probably didn't even remember because he really wasn't important to me. I love when people can write like stories with a whole bunch of characters, but me and my anxiety, I can't do it. I have to literally just try my best to focus on two people, with the exception of the last book I just did, which that was hard. So I don't see myself doing that again. I just like two people, just two names. Just two.
Okay, so Nako, when you decided to pivot a little bit, you created a new pen name, K-Vet, to publish more women's fiction. And that has like sisterhood, woman issues, like you be taking us through it. So what made you decide to pivot and go into that genre and why not do it just under Nako?
So one of the reasons, in the pandemic, me and God spent a lot of time together. And so from a few of my last reviews on like my last novels, they were saying like, oh, we wish she would go back to the old Nako. Oh my God, all the scriptures, I just probably did too much. They just really wasn't feeling it. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to go under a pen name because again, sometimes I don't have 125,000 word book in me. Sometimes I just got 35,000 words and I just want to share it because I wrote it in 4 days and I thought it was dope. And with me noticing that my shorts wasn't doing good under Nako, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to recreate something that can be me. And so I literally wrote a book about K-Yvette. And then at the end of the novel, it was kind of like, want to read her work? Okay, well, here's 2 stories. So I birthed her through Nako because she still is a part of me. However, she's just on another level, not even just super spiritual or super romance. She's just everything that I feel like I am right now. So, yeah.
I like that. And I think to me, I thought it was great, but it was so funny because it took a lot of people a long time to realize you were her and she was you. They was just
my
like,
best friend was like, is that girl paying you to keep promoting her books? Because she's promoting them. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, the girl K-Yvette. She's just all over your Instagram. I was like, Muffin, that's me. I'm K-Yvette.
But the writing is very distinctly different. And that's why I was like, that was really dope too, because when you read it, it doesn't read like a typical Nako book.
Yeah, I got all new test readers for her. Like people that don't even totally different readers that can know how to differentiate, the things. So I'm excited to see where she's goes. She's doing really well. I think Exhale has like 350 reviews. So pretty happy about that.
All right. So people always ask authors, like, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Because once you write the book, that's like the first step of like a bunch of other steps that come after it. And a lot of people don't take into account the business side of writing. And Nako touched on it when she was talking about like, handling contracts or even like suing or having even knowing to have a lawyer. So in the beginning, when you're like an artist, you're like, I just want to write books. So what two right things that you did as businesswomen that you can kind of give to other writers who are writing and maybe are just like, what, I have to copyright my book? What, I have to make sure I do that? What two things? First of all, Nia, you're a whole lawyer, so I think you have way more.
You would think I would have some answers to that, but I am definitely still that writer who's like, I just want to write. Like I spend zero time thinking about the business end of writing, zero time. And I think probably like the reach of my work has suffered as a result. And when I've been approached many times by people saying, I could help you do this, I could help you do that. And, it's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. And I'm always like, yeah, but can you do that and like not intrude upon my creative process? Like, could you do that and not email me 3 times a day and ask me to answer a question? So I suffer from a catch-22, which is like, I would love to work with a team of people who sort of, know my voice and know my writing and can make decisions on my behalf. But I am not patient for building those kinds of relationships and getting people to know my writing. I almost wish I would have like a really talented reader who's read every book I ever wrote and said, I know what your vision is, and I want to help you bring it to the next level. I just don't have the patience required to like think really deeply about covers and readers and editors, and I just don't have any of that business sense. And again, I know I keep saying it, but that's one of the things that makes Nako kind of like stand out for me, because I'm like, she's steadily like releasing 5 books a year and like have started a coffee company. Like what? You know what I mean? So to me, that's like a skill that I just don't have. And, and I don't know that I even want to cultivate it. I would love to cultivate relationships with people who would do that for me. And, you're right. I'm a lawyer, so that has its own dangers, right? I'd be one of those people who like, they didn't pay your taxes for 10 years. You busy writing books, you going to prison. Like, you know what I mean? Because I just don't have that kind of head. But I'm happy to take tips because I know that Nako has that head. So.
No, I think the 2 most important things that I would tell an author, one would be to start a mailing list. I always think of it like this, and this is my dad's favorite example. If Instagram and Facebook and Twitter shut down today, how would you get in contact with your customers? Well, readers in our sense. My dad has customers. With readers, mailing lists are they're never going out of style. We're going to have emails for the rest of forever. Mm-hmm. So I have took it upon myself to focus more on my mailing list, mm-hmm. Outside of a reading community, which I feel like every author should have a reading group. Nia and them have, I think it's not worth the conversation. I'm in it and I love it. With Jacinta and what's the lady that does the meeting? Lily. And I love her. Yeah. I think the community is important. Those 2 things, a reading community and a mailing list. With those 2 things, it's literally no reason why you don't get to where you want to get. And those are 2 things that authors don't have. That's the crazy part. Like,
right. That's a good point about the mailing list. And like, because it's true that sometimes I feel tethered to social media because I have not.
And I love your notes. I used to
right?
love whenever you would do your book reviews, I would go get the book. Now, have I opened any of them? No, but because you said it was a good book, I go get them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I appreciate that.
So just turning back to your writing a little bit more, we're almost done. Y'all both write, to me, characters who have fullness of lives and they have flaws. So what does healing look like when you write them? Like what and how much do you want to push them before they get to that spot? Or how far would you write to make sure that they learn the lesson? Almost like a regular person or a child. It's like, I want them to learn lesson. They ain't learned lesson here when they cheated and they got away with it. But how do I get them to make sure that they get the lesson and that they also have healing as well? And what does that look like for you guys in your writing?
Ooh, that was good. That's a good question. I'm feeling that now. Like I said, moving here, um, me and my family are all best friends. Like everybody, mom, dad. Nia's met my mom and them. Like we're all like super tight. So moving here in itself was placing a boundary because again, I'm on the West Coast. My parents and them was calling at like 6 in the morning for a long time, and I'm like, okay, no, like it's a boundary. So the book I'm currently writing, I feel like she's me. Not that this is a traumatic thing because I wanted to move here, but it's been definitely a lesson that I didn't think I was gonna have to learn so soon. And it's been healing while I've been here. Just being alone. I have no family here, no friends. It's Friday night. I'm home by myself. Like, so I'm gonna push that in my next book. Thank you. I never thought about it like that. That was a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nia?
I mean, healing for the characters or healing for me as the writer?
Both. In both. Because I feel like sometimes I always feel like a lot of authors say that they put them there, they kind of it's therapeutic for them or
Yeah.
get through certain things, or it's like, so it's like in the same way, because you're writing to heal yourself in some aspects, but then the character goes to a certain spot where they have to heal. So how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I try to balance it because I don't think there's any such thing as like a complete human being. Like I'm done now. I learned all my lessons. I got it all figured out. So when I write, it's always about a person who's at a stage of their evolution, right? Like they'll never completely be complete. So in Commitment, as an example, I think most people who've read me have read that one. Sean cheated on his wife, right? In 4, the book that revisits their marriage, he's no longer a man who would cheat on his wife, but he's still a man who puts himself in positions where he may very well cheat on his wife. So, I mean, he's evolved, but he isn't complete. And I don't believe in completion. So I'll always have a little thread of whatever that person's core issue is, whatever their core struggle is. Similarly with Tracy in Unsuitable Men, she was like high strung and difficult and, just couldn't sit still with herself. Right. And then in 4, yeah, she's still that woman. She's married. She's happily married. She got a kid. And your tendency in reading that is like, why can she not just be, right? Like, this is a tortured soul. She's not going to just be. She's moved along the process, but she's never complete. And so I write that, in full awareness as well that I'm never complete. And that, I have my struggles and my issues and my flaws as a human being. And, I try to be self-aware, but some of them I'm pretty much convinced are going to be flaws that will be with me till the day I die. So, and in terms of healing, I think the way that manifests for me in my writing is that things that trouble me about the world, things that trouble me about people in my life, always find their way into the characters I write about. So Black Lives Matter was heavily on my mind. I wrote about that. Civil unrest was heavily on my mind. I put my characters in those places. And ultimately, the characters themselves could be almost anywhere. But if those things are on my mind, I try to infuse the issues into whatever that character is going through. And, and that heals me. Like it's almost like talking to a friend or working out your, crap on a therapist couch. That's what writing does for me. So if I'm thinking about it, it's going to show up somewhere.
Yeah. And so coming up down to the last final questions, I always tell people to read this book if they haven't, especially if you want to be a writer. It's called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And one of the things that she says is that, and I'm paraphrasing, she basically says, like, writers, they're everything and nothing. So it's like on the one hand, they're nothing because you guys don't do surgery. You can't like save a life. You can't like deliver babies. You can't fight fire. So you're nothing. Like you're on paper. It's like, well, you don't do that, but then you're everything because you change people's lives with your word. People come up to you and say, you know what, I was going through a depression, but I read your book. You know what, this character is like mirroring my life. Were you in my head or something like that? You peeking on my life? So how do you guys feel, when readers reach out to you, what does that do for your work and just for you as an artist? Because it's very solitude what you guys do. You're by yourself in a room, in a space, and then you don't hear from anyone. And then you might see reviews, but it's still not that connection. But then you come to like an indie author signing, or you'll log on, or you'll do something live like this, and they show up for you.
I think it's hitting me. I've been writing for 6 years now. So yeah, like I don't even tell people I write books. That's the crazy thing. You have to literally be with me when I'm with my friends or my family and somebody else to have to say something. It's not nothing that I just be telling people. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. But I also like that I feel like this. I feel like it keeps me hungry. But I am thankful for readers that send those beautiful emails or write in a reading group and say, hey, this book that you dropped 4 years ago, I just read it for the first time. I love that. I need it. And I'm thankful that it always seems to happen when I'm questioning my work the most. But for the most part, I feel like all writers are awkward though. I've never met a cool writer. Like we're all kind of like, overthinking, socially awkward. So yeah, it's not nothing that I'm not wearing it on my shoulders. Like I write books all day. Like I'm not doing that. So I don't know.
I'm definitely in the what we do is nothing camp, like 90% of the time. That's what I think about writing. I'm like, this does not matter. This is not going to change the world. This is it feels like a vanity, a personal vanity to write your thoughts down and put it in a book and put it out in the world and have the temerity to believe somebody's going to be interested in it and get something out of it. It's so for me, it's a surprise every single time.
Really?
I kid you not. It really is. I mean, it comes back to you when people, write to you and say, I got this out of what, or did you mean that? I mean, they pull out the minutia and they get it. And that surprises me every single time. Mm-hmm. But when you're sitting down by yourself at your computer, writing a book, mm-hmm. I gotta tell you, especially when it's not going well, you will think 10 times, surely there is something more productive I could be doing with my time. Like it feels like the world is coming apart. And I think that was a part of what it was for me in like 2019, 2020. I felt like so many more important things are happening out there. And I'm going to sit and write a love story? Like that just doesn't feel like a necessary pursuit. And then I think one of the few things I wrote was about the civil unrest, right? So that made me feel good. So I got to write and I got to put some of that on the page. But 99 times out of 100, I'm thinking, does this really matter? Should I stop? And I agree with Nako. Those are the moments when someone reaches out and they like point out a detail about a book that you don't even remember having put in there. And you have to go back and read it your doggone self and say, did I say that? And that's when you know that the gift is like inspired, like divinely inspired. Some of it just don't come from you. Like I accept that.
Well, this has been great, ladies. And I just wanted the last question to end up on, what is your hope for yourself as a writer, as your career is? Where do you see it going in the future? And where do you want the genre to move? And that's the last question.
First, thank you for this interview. It was amazing, Nia. I hope to see you again soon once this pandemic gets up out of here. I just hope that I'm able to continue to inspire girls to write. I feel like every woman, Black, white, Dominican, whatever, we all have a story in us, whether it's a short story, a novella, a standalone. I feel like a lot of times readers are getting away from the content because they're focused on, it not being packaged in the way that they feel like it should be packaged. And I just want for the future of writing and reading that we just get back to those moments where it feels good. Like it just feels good. And so that's what I want.
Yeah, for me, I mean, again, as well, just thank you for this interview. And I'm happy to see Nako and that she's well and she is enjoying her new life. And by the way, like for somebody who you would think I know her really well. So when she was saying, I'm really close to my family, I was like, that's true. Like, how do I know that? I mean, I can pull up in her socials or whatever. And, but definitely, like wishing you well. And I mean, all the independent authors out there, I have so much respect for them. Like the independent authors that I read have been far beyond talented, right? Like when you think about the fact that they are writing the book, managing the staff, doing the covers, all of that stuff, sometimes on their own, and still producing like cutting edge work that I think is pushing traditional publishing to a new place. I just see that being, I just see that space as sort of ever expanding and like just changing the game for traditional publishing. And I hope we'll continue to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Nako and Nia. This was great. Like I fully, thoroughly enjoyed. We talked about everything, and thank you to all the listeners who tuned in live with us for the whole time. Y'all are dope. Y'all stayed on mute, and I just appreciate you guys so much. The whole point of this was to basically make this an intimate moment. We interview the authors all the time, but we really wanted to have the reader sit in and like get that experience. So you guys did amazing. Thank you again. And that was it. That's a wrap.